Uh, I had a video I just put up on Kanye West, and as far as I know, Kanye West is not dead. I was speaking of his mother, but it went up on the uh, tube as subject, and it didn't make it correct. Okay, it left the wrong impression. I also didn't get to this part when I was out at Scott Hill living as a retirement, and I've been blocked and made homeless. I'm Margaret Ann Windsor, heir to the British Crown. My father's Edward VIII, who never married Wallace Simpson. An impostor did. My father married Claudia Ruth O'Keefe from Madison, Wisconsin, sister artist Georgia O'Keefe. So that whole thing was to take down my father by the Illuminati. That's your mind control, people. And there's a lot of information if you just Google mind control, and everybody should be concerned about it. You think you're immune to it, and you're not. But I wanted to continue on this, and I still have documents. Well, I've put them up on Facebook and YouTube also through the years. Uh, an FBI agent that I remembered later that I had met when this whole thing started. I was kidnapped by the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Kennedy, Joe Kennedy, his own son JFK had kidnapped me in 41, and he flew in there and stayed at the embassy. Joe Kennedy was made ambassador to England by another Jew, Roosevelt, FDR. So you get the whole global government now is controlled by the Illuminati, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, Freemasons. My own uncle, George VI, helped take down his own brother and kidnap his own niece, the Queen of England, the day I was born, because of an addendum to the forced abdication. He never married Wallace Simpson. That was a total lie. But that's not what I wanted to get to. I was trying to give background. What I wanted to say here was about the mind control murders were done in patterns, deliberately, because it's invisible. It's a murder weapon being used, and you would never know how many people it's been used on. But Noe, I'm up in Grottoes, Virginia, with Larry Flint car, Hustler car. It was leased for me for a year, and I've got it. I never got back with Mr. Flint. I did have one of the agents call me, so they knew where I was. I was in Falls Church, Virginia, at Seven Corners. Had leased an apartment for 6 months. I was kept without jobs, etc., so it was hard to do. But anyway, I was there in April of the issue was mailed to me of 84. And it was mailed to me from Minnesota. The only thing I have there is the twins gets involved. They're used in it. Twins are. It was the Twin Cities. St. Cloud. He lived on St. Cloud. Flint did in Bel Air. But Minneapolis, St. Cloud, okay, area. Twin Cities, they call it. Anyway, it was sent from there, single, didn't buy it. It was mailed to me so they knew where I was living, where the car was. And the agent called me a few days after I'd received it, and it was a big endorsement that I put up all the time from Mr. Flint. It was in that issue of Hustler. Uh, his was shooting was mind control. And I don't think this is going up. Let me see. It is. Sorry, but I'm sick and I'm elderly, to say the least, and not in good health, okay? Okay, let me get back to, if I can. I'm up there, and I will say this. I was kidnapped, if I didn't, from Buckingham Palace, 41, age 2 years old. My father's Edward VIII, who never married Wallace Simpson. He was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe Windsor. It was a plot to take down my father with character assassination, and they did. Anyway, I'm in Falls Church. I get the call from an agent that I knew, kind of, and I trust, I still do, from Atlanta. He's calling from Larry Flint's home. And he said, Larry is just all upset. He doesn't know where to find you. Where are you? Well, he just called me on a phone number he had, and I didn't give it to him, so they knew I'm making my point. So anyway, they've always known where I am. The point I want to make here is about the mind control murders, though. Noe was the one that, an agent that I had known back in Huntsville, Alabama. My husband did. He worked with my husband at Brown Engineering, but he's an FBI agent and a good one. So I remembered him from back then and put it together. Now he is in Grottoes, Virginia, while I'm pumping gas and hustler cars there in 1984. So now then, he said they made it so ludicrous that everybody had the chance to help you or walk away, and they walked away from me. So now then, I was just Googling mind control. After all I've put up and everything, I don't think mine goes up under mind control. It goes up under blogs and something. But there's some really good information that's legit and good on that you can find under mind control. This one was talking about Kanye West. And I wanted to say this, and without getting into detail, it's too hard to explain. You have to give too much background, and I've done that. If anybody cares to go over Facebook or well, I don't know if you can go over Facebook, go over YouTube. I've got two accounts. A Mrs. Angela Queen, Queen, knocked out my phone last Easter, and my accounts have been scrambled, and I don't know. I got a little bit back. Anyway, before this goes out, he was talking about Kanye West. I have put up it's documents. If you get into it, it is a document about where I was when Kanye's mother died, was killed. There's different ways to kill people. Kanye West has tried to tell you also about MK Ultra and mind control in Hollywood. I just came at a different angle. They were deliberately done in patterns, but this man that was telling about Kanye was telling the truth. He had a good program going telling about mind control. And Kanye's mother was murdered via mind control. And I want to say this, because I live in fear all the time if my life isn't bad enough. How can I say this? Okay, I'll just try to leave the background or proof out. You can program a doctor without his knowledge also. And he's going to perform an operation or a diagnosis, and he can be placed under mind control. And a slip of the knife or anything can happen when his mind is controlled also. I'm going to say this without going to where I was or anything. This one can be proven if you get the layout of it and everything. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I was at Scott Hill Retirement out in Clifton Forge, Virginia, near Covington. I meant to stay there. I have been made homeless, a pauper, and I meant to stay there when they signed the lease. They didn't mean for me to stay there. Let me put it this way. You can be hired for a job, but fired before you get it and you don't know it. You get what I mean. So anyway, that was July the 15th till October the 10th of 2015. I was out there briefly, and I'm going to the store on the radar bus, and this long procession goes by. I mean, they had state troopers, and by the way, I feel that a lot of state troopers have tried to help. They're the ones, and some law enforcement. Then some law enforcement were into, okay. Anyway, not so good. Anyway, one of the guys on the bus that lived in the retirement home where I lived said, well, they called him Waffle. He's a Clifton Forge police. He worked for the police department. He was a policeman. And he'd had an operation, and from all accounts that I could get, the doctor must have done it. Now, may have been programmed, and I don't know what else went on, but I know if you ever see the, how can you say it, the layout, you'll know what I'm talking about. He was murdered. So it's just that easy. But I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to put Kanye West's mother. And who was the young lady that did the Weight Watchers? She was a African American, did the Weight Watchers ad, and then went into the movies. But her mother are and part of that family were died in Chicago, and I've forgotten. I'd have to go back and Google. But that was Mind Control. But then you get into some of them that Priscilla Presley, slip of the knife, and I think she's been able to get her face fixed back, but that they pretty much did her in. So I'm not going to go into detail. Joan Rivers, Priscilla Presley. I can't remember sitting here now. I will say this on one thing. This was law enforcement, and these people were nice, and very few people have been this law enforcement was. So I'm not going to, he didn't do anything wrong. He picked me up and gave me a ride when I had no food or anything. But he took me to across where I'd been made to camp all these years when I could walk in the hot sun, freeze, starve, because people didn't want to get involved. And they were told not to help me, and they didn't. So I starved and froze and all this. So the Crawfords, as in Crawford, Texas, where the Bushes live, they had lived there a long time, and they would not help me. So this officer drove up there, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And remember, I had camped there because I couldn't get up, climb so much anymore, and my tent was back up in there off the Appalachian Trail, but in front of their home, you couldn't really see it from where I was. I was back up there. But anyway, he stopped there, and I had been doing this for quite a few years, going up on the trail until I couldn't go anymore and walk it in tent. So I had tented down close to Mountain Pass where the Crawfords live, right in front of the old trail there. And the policeman, law enforcement, pulled up there with me, and it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've never seen this happen before. The Mr. Crawford walked out in his pajamas, which was quite odd. He walked out and walked up to the car, and they talked, and it was staged. Now then, they helped me, the law enforcement helped me with food, and I believe a night's stay. And I'm left coming back, of course, and trying to hoof it to a place to live back up on the trail. And by the way, the woman that took down my phone and pretended to be a friend and got a house and God knows what out of it, Angela Queen, I found out she lived right down from Crawford, and that's right down a few doors down from the trail where I used to go up and freeze and starve. I'm going to give you this. I'm the Margaret Ann Windsor, the monarch, Queen of England, the day I was born. My father's Edward VIII, who never married Wallace Simpson. It was a takedown of my dad. He was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, sister to artist Georgia O'Keefe. So you're using the name Queen, and she's been bought this beautiful home. Oh, let me clue you. She got that. Her husband got a real job. They moved from North Carolina. And they'd been there since 2011, I think, or 12. And they still hadn't sold their house over in North Carolina. So they've got all this for what they did involved with me. And it wasn't good. My phone, everything. I went to their home. I didn't know her last name was Queen until I got there. And guess what? Her they were biological sisters. She had adopted them. They had. Their name was, I'm not going to give the girl's first name, but their last names was Castle, and then, of course, the adopted name was Queen. So you're getting into patterns that are used in mind control surrounding me, and I'm going to go back to this. When he came out in the pajamas, Mr. Crawford, this is when I'm contacting Attorney Martin Garagos, who I think is an honest man. I really do. But he was defending Scott Peterson and Michael Jackson. It was a few days later, after Mr. Crawford showed up in his pajamas, odd. And the policeman was there, the law enforcement officer, in his front yard. And It was a few days later that Michael Jackson shows up in court in his pajamas. And I'm going to leave it here because this is somebody should have listened to all this a long time ago instead of trying to come out and silence me.